I'm Mark, and over here is Joe. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic, Mark. I'm ready to do some pod.
Yeah, I'm ready to do our pod. So doing pod's always a fun thing. So we're gonna start off by doing pod by talking about the highs and lows of the rookie quarterbacks of the NFL preseason. So we've gone and we've watched some tape on these guys, and we just kind of want to give you an evaluation of what these guys are and kind of what we think they're going to be the rookie seasons and beyond. So are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I am. And, I'm going to start you off with the question today, Mark. Going to mix things up a little bit.
All right,
So,
let's see what we got.
you know, even though I was gone for quite a little bit, the news of the Cardinals' bold decision to trade away Josh Rosen, I believe, and trade up for the first overall pick and pick Kyler Murray. So I'm curious just to hear what your thoughts are on Kyler Murray. What are we looking at with him? He's the big name out there.
So yeah, my thoughts are almost twofold on this topic. I'm glad you asked this question because as I talk about Kyler Murray, it's going to be a little bit confusing if you don't understand where I'm coming from. So I evaluated Kyler Murray in college, and I thought he was the real deal. I thought he was going to be basically this generation's Michael Vick. I thought that highly of him. I saw incredible arm strength, the ability to throw with accuracy, touch, timing, escapability, maneuverability in the pocket, and good decision making. I saw all those things in that quarterback. The only thing that worried me was his height, but he measured in at the combine at 5'10", so to me, Kyler Murray was a surefire of a prospect as you can get at the quarterback position. But now my thoughts are changing a little bit after watching him against some NFL competition and seeing what he's had to offer to the NFL. I'm actually a lot more down on him, and I think I may have jumped the gun a little bit on Kyler Murray. So we'll see where his career takes us. But yeah, from his tape, it wasn't good, and yeah, we'll just kind of get talking about a little bit more specifics about that. So Joe, I want to ask you your opinion. What do you think about Kyler Murray? I know you didn't do a lot of the college scouting evaluation thing, but from what you've seen in the NFL, what do you think?
So I want to go along with what you were saying earlier. I love the athleticism. I love the arm strength. I love his pure and raw talent that he has. I think the potential on this kid is out of the roof. Um, but just from what I saw in some of the few preseason games that he's played in, is he looks to get um, one of the big things that just stuck out to me right away is that he checks down a whole lot. It looks like he was scared to throw the ball downfield a little bit. He's scared to push those, to really test those cornerbacks and those safeties and those linebackers. And on just some of the plays, he looked confused. He didn't really look like he knew where he was going with the ball. He didn't really look like he was understanding the defense and the schemes and what he should be doing. Um, and I can remember one game in particular against the Vikings where they just really struggled to get any big plays or really move the ball with him. So, um, I love the potential, but I'd like to see that, that potential and that ability translate over a little bit more into into the games.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Like, looking at him, there's everything to love, minus maybe his height. But I'm kind of along the lines with you that he needs to kind of realize his potential here. And the one thing that was really telling for me was watching him against my Raiders in the preseason. The way he was able to play football, or I mean, the way he struggled to play football in that game was really telling. He looked very confused, very lost, and I think the biggest thing is that the Raiders were getting pressure on him early and often. And you saw that when they were doing that, he was inaccurate with the ball, and he didn't know necessarily where to go with the ball. And you saw his decision making really, really change from being good to bad. There were a couple of plays where he would check down, or even that one safety he took against the Raiders, where he saw the pressure coming and just out of instinct duck down into the end zone for a safety. Those are the kinds of things that franchise quarterbacks can't be doing if they want to be some of those top quarterbacks in the NFL. So, and I think the other telling thing about that game and is that they weren't able to really generate first downs. I think he played a quarter and a half, most of the second quarter. It ended after that safety, but he was only able to generate himself 14 total yards of offense against the Raiders defense, which has been one of the worst defenses statistically over the past few years. And I recognize that there are changes there, but the point's still the same. He wasn't able to deal with that pressure and take advantage of this Raiders defense. So I want to see Kyler Murray really dive into the playbook and game plans and really see what he can do to attack defenses better, because I think if he knows what he's doing, he's fine, but he does look a lot lost out there. So, Joe, what do you think it's going to take for Kyler Murray at this point to really fix those issues in his game? What do you think he has to do that?
I think a big thing is we've kind of talked about it. I think both of us mentioned that he just looks a little lost out there. And we both know, all of us know, that the NFL is a completely different game from college football. You need to game plan. You need to be able to read the defense. You need to be able to understand what's going on in order to truly be successful. Guys like Peyton Manning, guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, for example. So I think he just needs to get a little bit more of an understanding and just get a little bit more familiar with the game plans and his team's strategy and the opponent's strategy, so he knows how to attack that. And I know some of the stuff that it may be coming across that we're not high on this kid. I don't know about you, but I really like this kid's potential. From the games that we did see, he's not quite there yet, but I did see flashes. I love the arm and his athleticism. I love that watching there. I remember watching him against the Vikings. He was extending plays. He was avoiding the sack really, really well. Defensive linemen were getting in there. He was able to avoid that very, very well. So I'm excited to see what this kid can do when he has a little bit more experience, when he gets more familiar with the playbook, when he starts getting used to NFL, when he starts getting used to some of these bigger, faster, smarter NFL defenses.
No,
so,
I agree with you there.
So I guess I'll ask you a question, Mark. Do you think Kyler Murray is the best quarterback out of this draft class, just from some of the other guys that we've seen? Is he the best out of them? I know we haven't really talked about any of the other guys, but maybe this can be a way to start talking about some of these other guys. Is he?
Yeah. Are you talking about right now, or is this a projection thing where do I think he's going to be the best out of all these guys?
Yeah, I think let's go long term. We'll go for a projection right now.
It's kind of shocking me to say this because I was so high on Kyler Murray, but I'm going to say no. He's not going to be the best long-term quarterback. There's a couple of reasons why. One, the air raid system, that college offense, I'm not sure it's viable in the NFL at this point. And two, there were whisperings around draft combine time that Kyler Murray never really spent time in his playbook, never really spent time game planning, doing stuff like that, studying. If those habits translate over, I just don't see how he's going to be the best quarterback out of this draft. So I'm going to say no, he's not going to be the best quarterback out of this draft. Kind of a bold prediction, but I'm going to ask you the same question, yes or no. Do you think he's going to end up being the best quarterback out of the bunch?
I'm gonna put my trust in the number one overall pick. I love his potential. I think if he puts his work in, if he studies, if he, once he gets familiar with the NFL, once he gets a better understanding, I think he could be the best quarterback out of the draft class, out of this year's draft class. And both of us, I think, have studied a little bit on some of these other quarterbacks that were taken, and maybe this is a good time to start talking about them a little bit, start talking about their potential and what we've seen in them, maybe see if our opinions change about Kyler Murray at the end of this. maybe we want to go start talking about
Uh,
what we've seen in some of these other quarterbacks. Really get a full picture before we make our, our final decision, our final prediction.
all right, perfect. Let's do that, and let's start with the second quarterback off the board. Kind of a surprise at the time, number 8, New York Giants, Daniel Jones out of Duke. Joseph, what have you seen from him?
Well, from what I've seen so far, he is a very poised quarterback. I love the arm on this kid. I forget who he was playing, but he was making very, very, very nice throws, very tight windows, just very, he just looked good out there when I saw him playing. He was just stayed firm in the pocket, wasn't getting phased. He was rolling out, hitting his mans. He looked the most NFL-ready quarterback out of all the guys that I watched.
Yeah, I think the key word you said there was poised, and that's exactly how I would describe Daniel Jones, being the prodigy of the same coach or same people who helped Peyton and Eli Manning in their career. I think you're going to get a poised quarterback out of Daniel Jones, and that's why the Giants decided to take him at number 8. And I think the biggest thing, that the difference that I've seen from college to the pros, is that decision making and decisiveness. My biggest issue with Daniel Jones wasn't his arm strength or his athleticism. He's actually a sneaky good athlete. It's really that decision making and the confidence in that decision making, and maybe that has a little bit more to do with protection. I know he played at Duke, which isn't a football powerhouse by any means, but just his ability to take the snap and plant his foot and throw the ball is just night and day, because there were some plays I would see in college where he would just kind of feel the pressure and not know exactly where he was going, and he would throw off his back foot and throw some ducks, and that was a big red flag for me. I was thinking that might continue into the pro level, and thus far that hasn't happened. So I really like Daniel Jones and his potential in this New York Giants offense.
Okay, so here's maybe a follow. Where do you see Daniel Jones' potential?
Daniel Jones' potential. This is a really tricky one. I'm going to go Alex Smith. I know it's more of a direct comparison, but he reminds me a lot of Alex Smith. And not that the Alex Smith is a bad thing. I know Alex Smith might get a bad rap, but he's been a very good quarterback for a long time. He's just not necessarily that top tier elite guy. A lot of the key traits that I see is getting the ball out of his hands quick, a good arm, and athleticism. So I think that's what I see him as, a very good starter for a long time. And he can win you games if you have a team around him as well. So that's what I see out of Daniel Jones. Joseph, what do you see out of Daniel Jones? What do you think his potential is here?
I really like that Alex Smith comparison right there. That's kind of the sense that I got from him. From what I watched, from what I saw, he was a very, very good quarterback. He just did everything that he was supposed to do. Did he have any super, super wow plays? I can't remember any specific plays that made me go, wow, this kid's going to be a superstar. But he was doing everything right. He was doing everything that, a quarterback needs to do. And he just said, I'm ready to play. And with a lot of the weapons that they have over in New York, especially Saquon Barkley, and a great coaching staff, I think we can see this kid progress and become one of those solid quarterbacks in the NFL that plays 10, 12, 15 years.
Okay, yeah, I think we're in agreement there. But here's a follow-up question for you, Joseph. Just kind of with Daniel Jones looking like the most poised quarterback, and that whole situation in New York, do you think maybe Daniel Jones should sit for a little bit, learn behind Eli Manning, or do you think the Giants coaching staff should put him out there right away?
With someone like this, with someone like Eli still on the team, I think they should sit Daniel Jones for just a little bit, still let him learn from Eli Manning. This is still the preseason. Everything changes once we get to the regular season. That's when we start seeing more complicated game plans, different blitzes. That's when they really start trying to confuse offenses. That's where they pull out all their tricks and gimmicks. So I say you let him sit behind one of the better quarterbacks for the past decade or so, and just let him learn and let him see how to lead the team, run an offense, and handle some of these tricky situations that you run into in the game of football, 2-minute drill and different blitzes.
Yeah. I think Daniel Jones should sit a little bit as well, and really learn those things, because I know preseason is different. They're not necessarily game planning or doing all these complex things on the defense. So yeah, he looks good now, and they're running the same couple defenses, but how does he look in the regular season? Though I will say it's going to be really hard for the Giants to justify sitting Daniel Jones after how he's looked in the preseason. So I would expect him to play sooner rather than later, if not the week 1 starter. But I think he could definitely benefit from sitting. So,
May
do you
I
have any
make
more?
may I make a prediction right here?
Okay, go for it. I want to see
This
this
is
hot take.
one of one of Joe's bold predictions. I say by week 5, Daniel Jones is their starting quarterback.
Oh man, I was expecting you to go bolder, because honestly, I could very well see it opening week or within the first couple, maybe 3 weeks. He's the starter, just because of Eli Manning. If he looks bad, his arm strength isn't necessarily there. It's going to be really hard, but that is a bold prediction indeed. We shall see. Keep tabs on Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones will watch, see when he gets in the game. But yeah, I guess I think you and I are in agreement here. We're excited to see what Daniel Jones can do on the football field. So we're going to move on to our next quarterback. We're going to stay in that division, and we're going to go with the Washington Redskins and their rookie quarterback in Dwayne Haskins. So, Joseph, what are some things that you've seen from Dwayne Haskins thus far?
I love this kid's potential. I love this kid's arm. I love his athleticism. I love his potential. I think the Redskins have a solid project right now, because I will say he's a project. I saw some good things, but I also saw a couple of things that have me concerned a little bit. One thing that I noticed is that he tends to hold on to the ball for a little bit. He struggles getting rid of the ball in those 2-3 seconds like you want, and that led to a couple of fumbles. Um, that led to a couple of sacks that could have been avoided. Um, I felt like he was trying to force the ball in to just some really tight windows. He was making a couple of bad throws in situations where, he should have checked down, or he should have just held onto the ball for a little bit. But I love the fact that he was taking shots down the field. He was trying to hook up with his receivers down the field. I love that he's not afraid to take those shots. I'm a big fan of those gunslingers, like Brett Favre and Patrick Mahomes in our time and day right now. So I love this kid's potential, but I still think he needs a little bit of work.
I agree that he does need a little bit of work, but I think there is a lot, and by a lot, I mean a lot of potential. I'm just going to go to his Ohio State stats from last year, his first real year starting as a sophomore. Okay, so he threw 70% completion, 4,800 yards, 9.1 yards per attempt, with 50 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. That is Dwayne Haskins' stat line for Ohio State last year. So I don't know. I don't know about you, but I know sometimes people are like, oh, he only did that for 1 year, but this was this kid's first year starting, in college football, and now he's in the NFL. I think he's extremely raw. And I think he has all the potential in the world to be a top tier quarterback. And when I look at Dwayne Haskins, I see a lot of Ben Roethlisberger in the way that he plays. Kind of like you were saying with like the Brett Favres and the Mahomes, those kind of gunslinger guys. I think Big Ben's right there in that category, a guy who likes to throw the ball down the field. And with Haskins, I don't see a ton of athleticism. He has decent athleticism, but his thing is that he's big. He's 6'3", 230. And he's shown it in the preseason that even when there's guys around him in the pocket, he can get that ball off down the field. There was one against, I forget, I think it was the Bengals, where he was getting tackled or almost getting sacked, and he threw this 55-yard dime down the field to one of his open receivers. So I think he can benefit from sitting for a year, maybe a little bit longer than that. But with Case Keenum there in Washington, I think he's going to have that opportunity. And kind of going back to that original question, who's going to be the best quarterback in this draft? I'm going to put my money on Dwayne Haskins. That's how highly I think of the guy. So, is there anything else you want to add on Dwayne Haskins and his potential, or what you saw in the preseason?
No, I think you nailed it. I think he has a really, really, I think he has a really, really high ceiling right now, and I'm excited to see what this kid can do in a few
Yeah,
years,
I am
or
too.
even this year.
Yeah, we'll see about this year. I'm not sure he's ready yet. A couple of things that I don't like. He doesn't really step into throws, and I think the game's really fast for him right now. But once he plants his foot, steps into those throws, and stops all arming it, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He's going to be one of those top tier quarterbacks. So, anyways, we're going to move on to the last of the more highly touted quarterbacks in this draft, and it's going to be in the AFC West, Drew Lock for the Denver Broncos. And Joseph, what have you seen from Drew Lock up to this point?
Well, from what I studied, I love this kid. I love this kid's potential. He has an absolute rocket of an arm. My goodness. I watched him against the Seahawks, and there were a couple of throws where he threw that in between three defenders, and he threw it so hard where there was nothing they could do about it. So I love the arm on this kid. He's inaccurate with the ball. He did miss a couple of his guys down the field. He did overthrow a couple of people. But I think over time, I think he can work through that. I think his accuracy will improve. He needs to get used to some of the footwork, get used to some of the NFL speed. But I'm really loving the arm on this kid. You were big on the Redskins guys, the Haskins. Well, I'm really high on Drew Lock right now. I think he actually has the most potential in this draft class right now. I love that arm on the kid.
Yes, potential is the word. And throughout kind of the drafting process, I kind of really fell in love with Drew Lock because of that arm. And I was watching a lot of tape of him making these spectacular throws. But the more I watched him, the more I realized that I don't necessarily think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. He might be solid, he might be average, or maybe even good, but I don't think he'll ever be great. And the reason is because his decision making is kind of weird sometimes. He'll throw it some weird passes, and then accuracy. Accuracy is the big one because there's a lot of times when I watched him at Missouri where the down to down accuracy just wasn't there. He almost reminds me of like Cam Newton in that way, not necessarily the quality of athlete, but just kind of the way he throws the ball. Cam Newton will make beautiful passes one play and then just head scratchers the next. He'll throw a 50-yard, dime down the field and then miss the swing pass the next play. And that's what I see out of Drew Lock. Obviously, potential is the word. I think he is the most talented, most gifted quarterback in this draft. I'm just not so sure that he will put it all together just because of those kinds of issues. So, that's kind of what I think about Drew Lock. But I mean, you can't help but not to love his arm and its athleticism. Like that's his biggest selling point. And if he's successful, it's going to be those things that really drive him there. So, Joseph, now that we're kind of at the end of evaluating these quarterbacks or talking about what we saw, what we liked, I'm going to ask you, has your mind been changed about who you think the best quarterback's going to be out of this draft class?
We kind of talked about it earlier with Kyler with Kyler Murray. That's his name, right? and some of these other guys. And right honestly, I'm torn between Murray and Locke right now. I love both of those guys, like we talked about. They both have the potential. But I think I am going to stick with my pick with Murray. We talked about that earlier. My mind was not changed. I think right now he's just a little bit of a better athlete than Drew Lock, and he's a little bit more accurate with the football. So I think when it comes down to it, I think Murray has the potential to be the best quarterback out of all of these guys.
Yeah, I love Kyler Murray's potential. And I think you hit the nail on the head, though Locke may be a little bit more physically gifted. Murray's definitely a lot more refined at this point. So I don't think that's a bad pick. So you have Kyler Murray. I have Dwayne Haskins. Really interesting picks, but we shall see how this whole thing shakes out. So is there anything else you want to add about these quarterbacks? Do you want to make some bold predictions maybe for each of them, and then we can get out of here?
Bold predictions for each of them.
Okay. I will start. How about we do the system where we take the quarterbacks in the order that they were drafted in, and then make a bold prediction. And I will start. All right.
Okay, get us going.
Okay. So we're just impromptuing this. We'll see how this goes. So for Kyler Murray, my bold prediction is that Kyler Murray will throw fewer than 16 touchdowns this season. I do not think he's going to throw more than that.
Fewer than 16. Wow. That
Yeah.
is a bold prediction.
And I think that's compounded with the fact that he's not as refined, the air raid system isn't great, and that he doesn't have a lot of proven weapons on that team as well. So with a rookie head coach, I think all those things are going to combine. Fewer than 16, and his offensive line isn't looking great either, might I add. So yeah, kind of a bold one, kind of a crazy one. Not expecting it, huh?
Well, I was gonna be a little bit bolder and say Kyler Murray will throw for 35 touchdowns this year.
So you know that whole expression where the truths aren't one extreme; it's somewhere in the middle. Can we just kind of agree that maybe he's going to throw around 24 or something, and then call it a day? We're both going to be completely wrong.
Well, it is a bold prediction, as we say in the business. Go big or go home.
Go big or go home. I agree. All right, perfect. Well, let's move on to our next one with Daniel Jones. I know you already kind of made a bold prediction with him, but what do you want to restate that?
Um, I'll make an official bold prediction right there. That was my unofficial bold prediction.
Okay,
Um,
perfect. I like it. You're going hard for the pod.
yeah, going hard for the pod. Got to give it all. Um, my bold prediction for Daniel Jones this year is that he will throw less than 10 interceptions.
Mm-hmm. That is a very bold prediction because, as we know, rookie quarterbacks do come in and traditionally throw a lot of picks. And, I think there's a couple things that go into that one. It's how many games does he actually start? And can he avoid the rookie 4 interception game? I think that's really a big indicator with whether or not he can do that. So, how many games do you think he's going to play this year?
Um, let's see. This may go up against my first unofficial bold prediction. I'll say he plays at least 11 games this year.
Okay, yeah, I think that's completely fair because I think you said after week 5 he'll start, so that's about 12-ish games, so 11 isn't too crazy of a prediction. Okay, I really like that bold prediction. All right, here's my bold prediction. And this one is going to sound a little bit crazy, but I think that Daniel Jones is going to have more rushing yards than Kyler Murray in his rookie year. I really do
Whoa.
think. Yeah, whoa, big prediction here, and I just think because Daniel Jones is going to know when to run, and he's going to make most of those opportunities, and he's a sneaky good athlete, man. I'm telling you, I think he's going to run quite a bit, especially behind maybe a not so great Giants offensive line. So that's my bold prediction for Daniel Jones. Um, yeah, perfect. Let's move on to the next guy in Washington, Dwayne Haskins. Joseph, do you have a bold prediction for Mr. Haskins?
I do, and you may not like this one after you talking him up so much.
Okay,
My
let's
bold
hear it.
prediction is that Dwayne Haskins will not start an NFL game this year.
That is a very bold prediction because, as we know, that owner in DC isn't the most patient guy in the world, and Jay Gruden could be on the hot seat, so he might try to save his job by bringing in the young gun. So, man, that's a lot of assumptions you're making there, Joe. How do you feel about that prediction? Like in terms of like 1 out of 10 on the scale of being confident or not.
I don't want to be negative about my prediction. I'm going full force. I'm going to 10 on this one.
You're going a straight 10. Oh my goodness. But little did you know 10 means the opposite of what you think, so you're very not confident about it. So that's how this is going to work.
It's like that.
Yeah, it's going to be like that. Okay. Perfect. My bold prediction is that Dwayne Haskins will have an 85 passer rating this year in the games that he does start, just for the whole season. I'm going to say 85. And I know that's a very bold prediction, but I think by the time he does get to start, I think the speed of the NFL game will slow down for him. And, he's going to be a good quarterback, in those probably, I'm thinking 7 to 8 games he plays. Because, they do have Case Keenum, who is decent. So 85 passer rating for Dwayne Haskins in his rookie year. That is my bold prediction. All right, so we'll move on to the last one. Denver, Drew Lock. And I'm going to start with this one. My bold prediction is that Drew Lock will throw more interceptions than touchdowns this year if he does see the field. That is my bold prediction. And I don't know if that's the boldest thing, but that's how I feel it's going to shake down, even with all his talent. And I know you might not be so happy with that because you are really high on this Drew Lock kid. But anyways, what is your bold prediction for Drew Lock?
I'm going to be really bold with this one. From what we saw, we're getting crazy over here on Mark You Down for a Cup of Joe. Drew Lock will have a 65% or higher completion percentage.
Oh, wow. That might be the boldest prediction of them all. Because, the best he was able to get in college was 59, 60. So you think he's going to improve 6-7% in the course of his rookie year against the NFL. So that is a very bold prediction. How do you feel about your bold predictions? Do you think they were bold enough? Do you think we made them good? Something we should probably revisit?
I think we need to come back and reevaluate maybe after the first few weeks of the season and kind of see where we're going, see how these bold predictions are going. I'm taking some shots. I threw some Hail Marys up there, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, honestly, I threw some prayers out there as well. I think I might have backed myself into a corner with a couple of them, but I am high on these quarterbacks, so some of these quarterbacks, so I really do believe in them. So anything else you want to add about this quarterback talk?
Just how I just like to just end. I know some of these guys I hope some people may think that we don't like a lot of these guys. I know some people we kind of focus on some of the negatives, but I do want to say that I love all the potential of these guys. I'm really excited to see them develop. I'm excited to see them grow and become the next stars of the NFL, become the next Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger type of guys.
Yeah. I just want to echo that point. The only reason that I am kind of so hard on these guys is because I see all the potential in them, so I kind of know what they could potentially be. So I'm a little bit harder on them. If I didn't think they were going to be anything, I probably wouldn't be this critical of them. So I agree with you there. And we're ready to see some football. So if you guys like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on our Facebook page at Mark You Down for a Cup of Joe, and a link to our YouTube channel there. So thank you all so much for listening, and you guys have a good night.